Sir.
Chairwoman Gray, we're ready to begin.
Thank you so much. Welcome to West Basin Municipal Water District Water Policy and Legislation Committee and special meeting of the Board of Directors. It's October 16th. I believe it's 1:06. Mr. General Manager, do we have a quorum? I do call the meeting to order. Do we have a quorum?
I'll go through roll call. Director Don Deere.
Here.
Chairwoman Gloria Gray.
Here.
Director Scott Houston. Director Desi Alvarez. Director Harold Williams. Madam Chair, we do not have a quorum for a special board meeting. However, the Water Policy and Legislation Committee members are all present, and we do only have 2 information items. So I believe we are ready to begin at your direction.
All right. We can still have public comment, correct?
That is correct. And Madam Chair, we have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak, please indicate so now by raising a virtual hand. And Madam Chair, I do not see any requests for public comment.
Thank you. Are there any presentations?
Staff has no presentations.
Thank you. And there's no action items, so we will go to item 6, information calendar. 6A, state and federal legislative update for October 2024. Please proceed. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The board memo does begin on packet page 3 of your packet. However, I do believe that both the state and federal updates were emailed to all of the members of the committee and board. For this presentation, we have Augustine Hahn, our Water Policy and Resources Development Analyst.
BJ, thank you, Chairwoman Gray, members of the committee. I'll go ahead and get started with the state update, which was delivered as a handout to the board and members of the committee. To begin, just a little update about the legislative session. Governor Newsom completed over 1,200 actions on bills during the 2024 legislative session, which ended September 30th. This was the highest bill volume in his 6 years in office. 78% of those bills were authored by Democrats, 12% by Republicans, and this reflects the state's supermajority in legislature. He also vetoed 189 bills, or 15.7%, slightly above the average rate of 15. Specifically, Governor Newsom vetoes included measures aimed at expanding services for undocumented immigrants and some bills related to reparations. This reflected budgetary constraints and political considerations in a national election year. Overall, the signing outcomes of this legislative session highlighted the state's budget challenges and Governor Newsom's cautious approach to key controversial issues. Also, AB X2-1, which was the result of the governor's call for a special session, was signed on October 14th. The bill would require refineries to keep a to-be-determined minimum amount of gas supply on hand to help smooth out price spikes. The state said happens when refineries go down for routine maintenance. This is intended to prevent gasoline price spikes out. Moving on to cover some of the priority water legislations since the last meeting, updates since the last meeting. SB 366, this was the California Water Supply Plan, was vetoed on September 25th. For your memory, this bill was co-sponsored by CMUA, CSAC, and California Council for Environmental and Economic Balance. It would have required DWR to include a planning target of 9 million acre-feet of water conservation or storage capacity to be achieved by 2040. West Basin supported this bill, and then Governor Newsom's veto message, he cited the following reasons. It was the substantial ongoing cost for the state, DWR, and the state board. And he also mentioned that the administration recently released the 2023 water plan, which laid out a statewide vision for promoting climate resilience across regions, water sectors, natural and built infrastructure. This was a 2-year-long effort that took strategic coordination by the water industry alongside DWR and Senator Caballero. Newsom, in balancing various interests during an election year, did not sign the bill despite extensive coordination between the senator, the department, and the water industry. Moving on to the next bill is AB 460 by Assemblymember Bauer Gahan. This has to do with water rights and usage and civil penalties. This bill was signed September 22nd. As introduced, the bill would have provided the state board expansive authority to enforce water rights and civil and administrative penalties. After tense negotiations over the last year and a half and a hefty opposition campaign, given concerns about water rights protections, the assembly member agreed to limit the bill to only include increased civil and administrative penalties. This ultimately allowed all water entities originally opposed to go to a neutral or even support position. A couple of the bills that I'll mention that got signed was the 1827, AB 1827 by Assemblymember Pappen. This related to fees and charges. This bill will clarify that existing law allowing a water supplier to impose property-related fees or charges that include the incrementally higher cost of water service due to higher usage, potential water use, and projected peak water usage of parcels. This bill was sponsored by Irvine Ranch and along with Coast Keeper, and that was signed. AB 2257 is a bill that was brought before this committee before. This is a Prop 218 remedy. This establishes a procedure whereby a ratepayer must exhaust administrative remedies prior to bringing a lawsuit contesting a fee or assessment. This is an Aqua-sponsored bill, and it was supported by many in the water industry. I'll just mention a few bills that died this past session. SB 1255 by Senator Durazo. This was the low-income rate assistance program bill. We saw that die this session. AB 22079 by Assemblymember Bennett, permitting large diameter, high capacity water wells, also died. AB 1573 by Assemblymember Friedman, related to banning irrigation on non-functional turf, also died this past session. And there were also 3 bills related to water use efficiency that died as the water use efficiency regulations that were being developed at the state board continued to improve and allowed more flexibility to retailers. Moving on, the Assembly Select Committee on Permitting Reform is hosting a hearing entitled Permitting Reform to Facilitate Climate Resiliency today in San Francisco. This includes a panel on permitting reform needed to address 3 different areas. First being address sea level rise and flooding. The second is preparing for drought conditions. And third is facilitating the reduction and removal of atmospheric carbon. The purpose of the select committee is to systematically examine existing permitting processes and seek out meaningful solutions. Moving on October 1st, Governor Newsom released a recap of water actions to date as we begin a new water year in the state. He mentioned a few key milestones in the past water years, and that included the state board distributing $880 million to nearly 400 communities in fiscal years 23 and 24. You mentioned streamlining the sites project, which we saw in a press release on September 20th. He also mentioned making progress on Delta Conveyance, also celebrated 10 years of Sigma, and also celebrated the release of the 2023 water plan update. He also mentioned that the state remains ready to respond to changing water conditions, including the potential return of dry conditions in the next water year. Moving on to another update at the state level. This was an op-ed piece from Mary Ann Dickinson and Tia Fleming, who are from the Alliance for Water Efficiency and Cal WEP, respectively. California Public Utilities Commission is currently considering a flawed proposal that threatens to dismantle a mechanism called decoupling, a proven method of incentivizing water conservation while keeping consumer costs affordable. Decoupling separates water sales from a utility provider's revenue, allowing providers to promote conservation without compromising their financial stability. This means essential water use remains affordable, while higher usage is charged at steeper rates, encouraging responsible consumption. And this is done at the CPUC, and so it would be relevant to our investor-owned utilities. Just a quick date on some ballot propositions that we brought before this committee. Prop 2 from Muratsuchi, the bond for K through 12 and local community college facilities. The PPIC recently released their September poll numbers that showed 54% of likely voters would vote yes, 44 would vote no. And then moving on to Prop 4, which is the climate bond, which Senator Allen put forward. That same poll released numbers saying 65% of likely voters would vote yes, 33% would vote no. Water Policy and PI have been coordinating on educational efforts. More info is expected to be presented at tomorrow's PI meeting. Just a reminder for the board members that a new state member catalog from our state lobbyists and PA was shared with the board member and shows some of the potential new state representatives that we might have in the future. Another update for you regarding the state's water use efficiency framework. Policy staff continue our one-on-one meetings with retailers to discuss the regulations. This is a way for us to assess retailers' readiness and the resources required to comply. And so we've completed meetings with 3 of our city retailers, and we'll be meeting with other interested retailers on an ongoing basis. That concludes the state report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Are there any questions, Director Dare?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you go to the next item then? Thank you.
Happy to do so, Madam Chair. I'll move on to the federal update here. The first update is the government shutdown has been averted. On September 25th, Congress passed a continuing resolution through December 20th, averting a partial government shutdown that would have begun October 1st. Congress will return to session on November 12th and will have until December 20th to negotiate a bipartisan spending agreements on all 12 fiscal year 25 spending bills. Speaker Mike Johnson has stated that there will be no omnibus package before the December 20th deadline. This sets up a scenario in which the next president-elect will likely have significant sway in directing Congress to finish the work in a lame duck or waiting until the new administration begins. Moving on to issues on the Colorado River, Holland and Teton vow every viable option on table in Colorado River plans. Both officials co-authored an op-ed published in the Sunday, October 13 edition of the Arizona Republic, as the Biden administration considers long-term operating plans for the river. Reclamation's officials stated in early October that the agency hasn't committed to any of the 9 proposals it received from the basin representatives, conservation advocates, and tribal nations earlier this year. Despite a negotiating gridlock, the officials are still open to a consensus plan from all 7 states, a statement expressed on Friday, October 11th. Reclamation has stated it expects to select its final proposal candidates in December, with the final record of decision slated for mid-2026. Moving on to an update on the Salton Sea. Interior Department, State of California, break ground on Salton Sea rehabilitation efforts on October 15th. Department of the Interior and California Natural Resources Agency and other stakeholders broke ground on the latest phase of the Salton Sea Species Conservation Habitat Project. This was funded in part through President Biden's Investing in America agenda. Reclamation is investing $250 million through the Inflation Reduction Act over 5 years. Investment began in 2023 to expedite implementation of the state's 10-year plan for dust suppression, aquatic restoration efforts, while enabling urgent water conservation. The Senate Natural Resources Committee advanced Western water resources legislation recently on September 26th. The committee marked up over 79 pieces of legislation, including some of Bureau of Reclamation bills associated with the Colorado River and other Western watersheds. Just to mention those three bills, it's the Lower Colorado River Multi-Species Conservation Program Amendment Act of 2024. This was introduced by Senator Padilla and is supported by Metropolitan. Another piece of legislation is the Help Hoover Dam Act. This was introduced by Senator Sinema and is also supported by Metropolitan. The last one is the Sacramento River Act, which was introduced by Senator Padilla. This is to establish the Integrated Water Management Federal Leadership Committee to provide for improved drought resiliency and dam safety. Moving on to an update from the EPA. The EPA revises lead and copper rule. On October 8th, EPA announced the final lead and copper rule improvements, or LCRI, which requires water utilities to identify and remove lead pipes within 10 years. The rule also requires more diligent testing of drinking water and a lower threshold that requires communities to act to protect people from lead in drinking water sources. Additionally, EPA announced that an additional $2.6 billion in funding will be available through the state revolving funds to support lead pipe replacement projects. There was also some guidance regarding PFAS that was released on September 24th. The U.S. Government Accountability Office released a report outlining ways in which public water systems are struggling to manage the byproducts from filtering forever chemicals. This study made 4 recommendations for the EPA. They include establishing a time frame for additional resources to help systems communicate PFAS and its health risks to customers, to create a straightforward resource relevant to systems' disposal of PFAS contaminated waste, to publish a small entity compliance guide for PFAS, and to identify barriers public water systems experience obtaining federal funding to address PFAS contamination. Moving on to more information about PFAS, EPA poses to expand public access to information on PFAS. On October 2nd, EPA released a proposal to add 16 individual PFAS chemicals and 15 PFAS categories representing more than 100 substances to the toxics release inventory. Currently, there are 196 PFAS required to be reported under the TRI. The proposed rule would bring over 100 additional PFAS within the TRI scope. It would also designate them as chemicals of special concern, meaning they must meet stricter reporting requirements, including the reporting for small concentrations. EPA published this proposed rule in the Federal Register on October 8th, and comments are due by December 9th. More news from the EPA regarding water quality. On September 24th, a federal judge ordered the EPA to regulate fluoride in drinking water after findings from the National Institute of Health's toxicology program showed that fluoride poses a neurotoxic risk to human health. The U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California concluded that fluoridation at 0.7 milligrams per liter, the level currently considered optimal in the U.S., poses unreasonable risks. Unless a subsequent legal challenge is filed, EPA will now have the responsibility of reassessing fluoride levels and determining appropriate regulatory measures under the Toxic Substances Control Act. And the final update, the final federal update is that West Basin signed a letter to the Congressional Energy and Water Appropriations Subcommittee leadership on September 19th. This was a letter led by Water Reuse, urging that subcommittee to support investments in America's water future by funding the Title 16 program at no less than $30 million. Title 16 has helped communities across the West build drought resilience, keep nutrients and other pollutants out of sensitive waterways, and save billions of dollars relative to importing water and growing sustainable economies. Other signatories included Aqua, CASA, LA County Sanitation Districts, Orange County Water Districts, and Water Replenishment District, just to name a few. That concludes the federal update, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for the report. Director, are there any questions?
Oh, very good update. Thank you very much.
Yes, very thorough. All right. There's no questions. What's the next item?
Madam Chair, the next item would be item 6B. It's our monthly Metropolitan Water District update. And this memo and presentation begin on packet page 5. And for this presentation, we have Tammy Hurley, our Senior Water Policy and Resources Analyst.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
EJ. Good afternoon, Chair Gray and member here. I'm happy to provide an update for you on what's happening in Metropolitan. So first listed here is the information on Proposition 4, the Climate Resilience Bond. It would now appear on the November ballot. And Metropolitan Board voted to express support for Proposition 4 last month. Prior to that meeting at the Legislation and Communications Committee, those members actually voted to recommend that the board take no position on the item. There was discussion on that. So when it came to the board meeting, however, Senator Ben Allen addressed the directors during the public comment period. And the senator had described some background on the measure, how it changed and how it was being developed, and financial and structural state limitations that they had to deal with. So $10 billion was the highest amount that could be proposed. So of that amount, that total, the bond includes $3.8 billion to improve water quality, watershed health, habitat restoration, and renewable energy development. So the senator expressed the importance of having support from Metropolitan and was very thankful in that manner. So in this memo, there's a breakdown of the different categories of the funding areas, specifically related to water. So for, so on that table, so we'll start with water quality, over $600 million for grants and loans related to water quality to fund groundwater remediation projects. Over $500 million for watershed health to address impacts of wildfire by reducing impacts of fire and our sources of water. Included in this category is $100 million for integrated regional watershed management programs for multi-benefit projects. Over $1 billion will be for habitat restoration, including nature-based solutions to advance environmental conservation. Also included in this category is $100 million to advance the state salmon strategy, which is a Metropolitan legislative priority. Also included in this category is $170 million for environmental restoration of the Salton Sea, which is important to address habitat and public health concerns, supporting Metropolitan Colorado River negotiation. Lastly, $85 million for renewable energy development. And of that amount, $50 million would support battery energy storage and $35 million would support transmission line hardening. So those are the direct and indirect benefits of the bond funding for Metropolitan service area. And then moving on to the Climate Adaptation Master Plan for water. So listed on page 6 of the committee packet, during September, the Camp-Full Water Task Force meeting of the committee worked towards finalizing evaluative criteria and reviewed a sample project to test the criteria format. So these members are a combination of board directors and member agency managers. So the members provided additional input for metropolitan staff. That input is being used to refine and update the evaluative criteria. Metropolitan staff intend to return with another set of scored projects to further test and refine this component of the decision-making framework. So these refinements will make a shift from an approach that would focus on a universal scoring system rather than to be an approach that would provide a more comprehensive evaluation that would use both quantitative and qualitative measures. So including also in that memo is a website link for the working memorandum number 9, and that lays out the proposed methodology for using the evaluative criteria to assess projects on the Camp-Full Water process. So we'll keep you updated as things progress in that area. The next item regarding white paper on direct potable reuse of roadmap for pure water Southern California. So Metropolitan Water System Operations staff has completed a white paper. This document includes consideration for implementing direct potable reuse, or we also refer to that as DPR, through the Pure Water Southern California program. And it outlines the role of DPR in the Pure Water Southern California program. It also includes the implications for newly adopted DPR regulations, along with the research and planning that's needed for successful implementation of the project. The white paper reflects contributions from staff across Metropolitan within the Water Quality Department, the System Operations, the Engineering Department, and External Affairs. As you know, the DPR regulations became effective October 1st, 2024. This will enable the introduction of the highly purified recycled water into drinking water supplies. And then also included on this report on page 7 is a link that will access a copy of the white paper on Metropolitan's website. And then moving on to talk a little bit more about pure water and the preliminary design. So the conceptual design of the conveyance facilities is currently being developed to support environmental studies and the permitting process that is required by CEQA. So the draft environmental impact report is scheduled to be available by mid-2025, and the final environmental impact report has been moved up to January 2026. And their goal here is to meet the budget and the rate calendars for the next biennium of the budget and rate cycle for Metropolitan. And then, excuse me, the Los Angeles County Sanitation District, they have a 5-year budget cycle. So currently work is ongoing for preliminary design of the first 2 pipeline reaches. Both pipelines under Reach 1 and Reach 2 include utilities, field investigations, and geotechnical work. The preliminary design for the Reach 1 pipeline would traverse through the city of Carson. That is 83% complete. And the preliminary design for Reach 2 pipeline would traverse through the cities of Long Beach and Lakewood, and that is 50% complete. Also, to provide a brief description of the overall pure water conveyance system, the backbone pipeline would extend over 40 miles from the city of Carson, where the advanced water purification facility is located, all the way inland as far north to the city of Azusa. That backbone conveyance system would repurpose an existing pipeline that is currently owned by the San Diego Valley Municipal Water District, and it would add new DPR pipeline that would convey water from the backbone pipeline further eastward for raw water augmentation operations at Metropolitan's Weymouth plant that's located in the city of Luverne. Okay, and so that's the update on pure water. Moving along to proposed site reservoir water rights hearing. Included in this memo under attachment A is also located on page 11 of the committee packet. This is a policy statement that Metropolitan submitted to the State Water Resources Control Board administrative hearing. This is part of the water rights hearings on the site's reservoir. So Metropolitan, along with 29 agencies, are participating in the funding of the planning efforts for this proposed reservoir. This proposed project would be located on the west side of the Sacramento Valley, near Maxwell, approximately 65 miles northwest of Sacramento. So the State Water Resources Control Board has had a series of hearings the past few months that those are concluding this month in October. And the State Water Resources Control Board, their decision is expected next year in 2025. So Metropolitan has not taken an official position on whether to participate in the financing of the construction. However, Metropolitan's statement has identified that their board has indeed adopted policies related to the proposed reservoir, and Metropolitan supports the permitting process of sites related water rights. Also last month, an opinion was released by the 3rd District Court of Appeal, which upholds the site's project authority's favor in every claim that was challenged. They challenged the project, the sufficiency of the final environmental impact report, and it includes that the site's authority fully complied with CEQA requirements. So the proposed reservoir could hold up to a total of 1.5 million acre feet of storage. It could be used during dry and critical years. It's an off-stream storage facility that would capture and store stormwater flows from the Sacramento River. And just as another little bit of background, in April 2022, the Metropolitan Board authorized appropriating $20 million to allow participation with the site's project authority Amendment 3 work plan in order to focus on finalizing the environmental planning documents, the operation permit, and a coordinated operations plan with the federal and state water project. So for Metropolitan to continue its participation and reserve approximately 311,000 acre feet of storage sites, their planning cost share is $20 million, which is payable over a 3-year period through 2024. And then moving on to the board agenda look ahead. Of interest this month was an item for the Metropolitan Board to consider an authorized resolution to support 2 grant applications that were submitted to the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation for funding request totaling $2 million. And then also on another note, I don't think it's mentioned here, but during the One Water and Stewardship meeting, committee meetings or members received a first of 3 presentations on the Bay Delta Conveyance Project. More information and presentations on the State Water Project operations and Delta Conveyance will be provided in November. And then at the end of the year, the board is expected to consider authorizing an additional amount of planning dollars for continued permitting of the Delta Conveyance Project, since they are a contractual participant of the State Water Project. So I will keep you updated and informed as more discussion happen there. And then lastly, for the water supply update, included in the memo is a chart. It's at the end of the packet. And basically, when you look at that chart, I think one of the more important graphics to look at is the one on the bottom right corner. It's a little hard to see on the screen, but it's in the memo. That right corner shows projections for Lake Mead operating conditions. Lake Mead will be operating at a shortage level 1. And then that's the level between 1,050 feet and 1,075 feet in elevation. There is a 93% chance of this shortage condition continuing in 2026. And this forecast is based on Reclamation's annual August 24-month study that they just released. And the study projects Lake Mead to operate under Tier 1 shortage condition with a lower basin drought contingency plan contribution for Arizona and Nevada, along with Minute 323 water saving contribution for Mexico. Now, however, Metropolitan's water supplies are not impacted during this Tier 1 shortage. Metropolitan has the intentionally created surplus, also referred to as ICS, and the system conservation water are projected to be created. So if needed, Metropolitan could take delivery of ICF in next year, in 2025, to meet demand within their service area. So that concludes the update on Metropolitan. Thank you for the opportunity. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
It seems
you,
that the,
Tammy.
thank you.
Done.
It seems that the federal and state folks are getting their money into, what's the lake down south there? Lake down south, what we're talking about, putting money into, what lake are we talking about? Salton Sea.
All right.
Salton Sea is getting money from both federal and state. Are the agencies that coordinating their efforts down there?
Yes, they are. All those agencies in there.
Good. And on another subject, there was a mention of using recycled water as drinking water. This is the trend. It's going to be that way. And how is that going to affect West Basin?
Yes. So that the regulations became effective October 1st. And that is a way now that we can take that water source and put it directly into sewer source. I think I can refer to.
Yeah.
Data.
One thing I would say is that Director and President Alvarez at Metropolitan Water District has been very vocal about his position. He's highly supportive of Pure Water Southern California, which is Metropolitan Water District's facility that would, if constructed, would be located here in Carson. He's very supportive of the use of indirect potable reuse and direct potable reuse. And his belief is that the project would be better suited to deliver that water locally through what would be drinking water augmentation, which would be placing it directly into the drinking water pipelines. I think if you were to talk with Metropolitan Water District staff, they prefer both IPR and a certain type of DPR, which is raw water augmentation. So in order to do that, they would need to build a pipeline up to the Weymouth treatment facility and place that water there with raw water and treat it that way. We feel that either option would be a benefit to West Basin, but it's going to take Metropolitan Water District some time to get to a drinking water augmentation project. So in the meantime, continue to explore it, perhaps pursue the raw water augmentation, but definitely indirect potable reuse, which is how West Basin would utilize that water. We can place it in our system and ultimately utilize it in the groundwater barrier, and then possibly other locations as well.
Will this mean the elimination of the purple pipes?
No, we believe that if we were to take recycled water, even if it was treated to indirect potable reuse recycled water criteria, we could still utilize that for our purple pipe system and deliver it for outdoor irrigation as well.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Don. Thank you, Tammy. As always, thorough report. Thank you for the response to Tammy and EJ. The next item would be closed session. Is there any closed session?
We have no closed session items.
Next item is director's comments, future agenda items. Director Dare.
No more comments. It was a good efficient meeting.
Yes, my comments to great meeting, always great staff and thorough reports. So thank you everyone for reporting this morning. And thank you, Don, for being on the line. So is there anything else, Mr. General Manager, before we adjourn?
That's all we have today. Just for a quick reminder, we do have our Public Information Education Committee meeting tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much. Don, any comments?
Thank you.
No, all right. All right, then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.